Proverbs 31, 10 through 31. Says, a wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still dark. She provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gates. So mothers, what can we say about them? Well, someone who plays the role of a true mother, whether it was in any of the shapes that we named earlier, I think we can say everything good. There's nothing bad to say about them. 8-year-old Mary wrote her mother a note for Mother's Day. She said, "Dear Mother, here's a box of candy I bought for your mother for Mother's Day. It's very good candy, I know, because I already had 3 pieces." 8-year-old Carol wrote her mother and said, "Dear Mother, here are 2 aspirins. Have a happy Mother's Day." 6-year-old Johnny and his 4-year-old sister Susie presented their mother with a Mother's Day present, a small, spindly house plant. And while it was the finest looking, it wasn't the finest looking specimen. They had bought it with their own money, and Mom was just thrilled. And she hugged and she kissed her children, and she said, "I really love you guys for just even thinking of me." And Johnny said, "Well, there were some other flowers that we wanted to buy for you, Mom, but we just didn't have enough money." "Yeah," said Susie, "and they had a real nice bunch of flowers in the shop that we wanted to buy." And the Mom said, "I love this plant." "I know, Mom," said Johnny, "but these flowers would have been perfect for you. They were in a wreath and they had a ribbon on them that said 'Rest in Peace' on it, and you're always asking for a little peace just so you can rest." A school teacher gave her class of 2nd graders a lesson on magnets and what a magnet does. And the next day the teacher asked her students this question. She says, "My name has 6 letters in it, and the first one is M, and I pick up things. What am I?" And when the test papers were turned in, the teacher was surprised that almost 50% of the students answered the question with the word mother. Yes, mothers do pick up things. Yes, they do pick up after their children, and in most cases, they pick up after their husbands too. But mothers are more than just magnets, picking up after everyone in the house. They are many things. And so from Proverbs 31, there's so many things I could pull out of that, but today I want to pull out 3 things. I want us to look at how her hands work. I want us to look at how her mouth speaks. And I want us to look at how her heart loves. So first of all, her hands work. A boy got his first job, and as he was boasting about the amount of work he did, he said, "I get up at 5 a.m. and I have my breakfast." And he was asked, "Does anyone else get up too?" And he said, "Oh yeah, my mother gets up and she fixes my breakfast and she fixes Dad's breakfast. And what about your dinner?" And the boy said, "Oh, Mother fixes that too." "And does your mother have the afternoon to herself?" And the boy says, "Oh no. Mom cleans the house and she looks after the other kids, and then she gets supper for Dad and I, and when we come home, she takes care of those things, and then we watch TV before we go to bed." "And what about your mother? What does she do?" "Oh," the boy replied, "Mom washes some clothes and she irons the rest of the evening." "And do you get paid?" And he said, "Of course I get paid. Dad and I both get paid." "And what about your mother? Does she get paid too?" The boy replied, Mother, get paid? Mother don't get paid. She doesn't do any work. Now let me say, if anyone here today believes that moms don't work, I would suggest that you just keep your mouth shut. In this text that we see that mothers do all kinds of work. She sows, in verse 13, 19, and 20, she selects wool and works with eager hands. She shops. In verse 14, it says she's bringing her food from afar. She cooks. In verse 15, she provides food for her family, and she gardens. In verse 16, she plants a vineyard. Our text also says that mothers, verse 15, get up while it's still dark to prepare food. In verse 18, her lamp does not go out at night. What's that old saying? Man works from sun to sun, but woman's work is never done. Verse 27, she watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She is not lazy. I found this poem, and it's kind of old and outdated, but it kind of talks about a work of a mother. It's called Mama's Mama. Mama's Mama on a winter's day milked the cows and fed them hay, slopped the hogs and saddled the mule and got the children off to school, did a washing, mopped the floors, washed the windows, and did some chores, cooked a dish of home-dried fruit, pressed her husband's Sunday suit, swept the parlor, made the bed, baked a dozen loaves of bread, split some firewood and lugged it in, enough to fill the kitchen bin, cleaned the lamps and put in oil, stewed some apples she thought might spoil, churned the butter, baked the cake, then exclaimed, for mercy's sake, the calves got out of the pen, went out and chased them in again, gathered the eggs and locked the stables, returned to the house and set the table, cooked a supper that was delicious, and afterward washed all the dishes, fed the cat, sprinkled the clothes, mended a basket full of hose, then opened the organ and began to play when you come to the end of a perfect day. You have to think that God has really blessed us with our mothers. So I would think today we have to say, God bless you for all your hard work over the years. So we see her hands work a lot. Secondly, I want us to see her mouth speaks. Now, a lot of times when my mother's mouth spoke, it was words that I didn't want to hear. I just assumed that it quit speaking. But they were words I needed to hear. Verse 26, she speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction is on her tongue, is what it says. When preacher John Wesley was a student at Oxford University, he was shocked by the amount of drinking that was done by the students there. I got to admit, I have many fellow pastors that I've listened to them tell stories of while they were in seminary. I can't even speak. I'm the guy, I don't know, I got cinnamon on the mind or something. Seminary. And they talked about all the wild kegger parties they had at seminary. And I'm like, really? That takes place at seminary? And John Wesley talked about the drinking that went on at college. So I wonder what he would think about college students today. After writing to his mother, Susanna Wesley, about this situation, for her counsel, he received the following words. She said, my dear son, remember that anything which increases the authority of the body over the mind is an evil thing. Now, I'm sure we today would word that differently, but that's what she told him. And I think that's great instruction. And I'm sure that Susanna Wesley had a lot of other good words of wisdom to share with her children, and she had many children. Preacher G. Campbell Morgan had 4 sons, and they all became ministers of the gospel. And they were at a family reunion one time, and a friend asked one of the sons, which one of the Morgans is the greatest preacher? And while the son stood there staring at his father, he said, our mother is. Mother was the greatest preacher. Many mothers have done a lot of preaching to their children, whether they considered it preaching or not. Mama always said, now if you ever watch Forrest Gump, you've gotten to hear that a ton, but you've probably said it several times over the years. Mama always said. Well, what did Mama always say? For most of us, Mama said a lot, and generally it was for our own good. What did your mama always say that was good? You care to share it with us? Well, I'm thinking you probably could share a lot. And we would be here for days, maybe even weeks, if we started going through everybody and letting you share what mama always said. Words like mind your manners, or Everybody had the one, always make sure you have on clean underwear in case you're in an accident. But I'm pretty sure that if I'm in an accident, I'm not going to have on clean underwear anymore. Ron Dirge of Lake Egypt, Illinois, said these words of his mother. He said, "My mother is Ruth Dirge of Chester, and she is 93 years old and mentally sharp as she has ever been. And if we had classes in schools on how to be a parent, I would nominate my mother to teach the class. She has always been there for my sister and me, in both thick and thin. She doesn't hesitate to advise us, and her thoughts are always right on target. Rarely do I find myself not agreeing with her suggestions, but always hold her words of wisdom in high regard." Another lady from Carbondale, Illinois, said of her 90-year-old mother, "After I married, she continued to help with whatever need I had, from sewing beautiful holiday outfits to cooking and occasional house cleaning and babysitting. She always has been my counselor and my friend. This lovely lady just celebrated her 90th birthday, and I admire her so much and am proud she is my mother. My counselor and my friend." Verse 26, she speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. So we see her hands work, and her mouth speaks. And thirdly, her heart loves. Verse 11 and 12, her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all of the days of her life. If a husband has full or complete confidence in his wife, then you know that she is a woman who loves her man and loves her family. An epitaph on his wife's tombstone written by her husband after 60 years of marriage read, "She always made home happy." She was apparently a woman who did her husband good all the days of their marriage. A grandmother was telling her granddaughter good night when the little girl said, "Mommy and Daddy are entertaining some very important people downstairs, aren't they, Grandma?" And she said, "You're right. But how did you know that?" And the granddaughter said, "Just listen. Mommy is laughing at all of Daddy's jokes." Friends, there is a lot of laughter in a home. When there's a lot of laughter in a home, you just know that something good is happening in that home. And of course, there needs to be more laughter in our homes. Proverbs 17:22 says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine." When there is a lot of laughter in a home, someone is putting out some good medicine, and it shows a whole lot of love. A teacher at school put this question to little James in math class. She said, "James, suppose your mother made a cherry pie, and there were 10 of you at the table. There was your mother and your father and 8 children. How much of the pie would you get?" And James said, "A ninth." And she said, No, James. Now pay attention. There are 10 of you in this home. Don't you know your fractions?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am, I sure do. I know my fractions, but I know my mother even better, and she'd say that she didn't want any pie." I'm sure every one of us have a story like that we could share. Mom doesn't want to see you get just a little tiny sliver of a pie, so all of a sudden she doesn't want any pie. The unselfishness of a mother shows a heart of love for her family, and all of us can remember many unselfish acts of devotion that our mothers have made in our homes. One lady from Murfreesboro, Illinois, said of her mother, "Being a single working mother, Mom always put our wants and needs before her own. After a painful divorce, she remarried after 12 years, and they lived 3 beautiful years together until he had a massive stroke, leaving him paralyzed and unable to speak. Refusing to admit him to a nursing home, she stopped working and cared for him around the clock until last year when he passed on. Struggling to get her own grief, get over her own grief, she hung on to life, still finding time to care and give attention to those around her." She said, "I'd say that mother had a heart of love." I'm sure many of us can say that about a lot of mothers that we know. Maybe even our very own. Some grown children, this group of grown children said of their mother, "Mom has 5 daughters, 1 son, 6 grandchildren, and several son-in-laws that converge on Mom's at any given holiday just to be with Mom. She comforts, she stops fights, she loans money, and she loves us all unfailingly. So we see today our mothers, her hands work, her mouth speaks, and her heart loves. We are blessed by God to have someone in our life who plays the role of mother. It may not be the conventional mother that the world thinks of as a mother, but you know who mother is for you. I want to close with this morning. It's a poem called Mothers Are. Mothers are blowers of noses and washers of ears, smoothers of bumped spots and wipers of tears, scrubbers of dishes and wielders of mops, grandmas for dollies and winders of tops, bathers of babies and umpires of spats, finders of shoes and mittens and hats, helpers with lessons and makers of beds, shakers of dustcloths and combers of heads, button-sew-oners and winders of clocks, menders of dresses and darners of socks, tellers of stories and readers of books, judges and juries of conduct and looks, doctors for heartaches and hearers of prayers, generals directing all family affairs, tenders of home fires and builders of men. Oh, for the gift of an adequate pen. Friends, there is no adequate pen nor adequate words to express how much we owe our mothers for their hard work, for their good words, and for all of their loving deeds. But today, we're going to take a chance, and we're going to take just a shot in the dark to do our very best to honor them. And maybe your mother is already gone, and she is getting her heavenly rewards. And so today maybe you just stop and you say a little prayer and you say, you know, God, if you just take a moment and just let Mom know how much I appreciate all she done for me while here on this earth. And let her know that, God, just let her know that I love her. And maybe she's still here. And you can just tell her that yourself. Don't just make it, oh, here's a card, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. Let her know. Truly honor her today. And let her know how much you truly appreciate all that she's done. Let her know, we know she wasn't perfect because we're not perfect, but she let you know by the life she lived that it's okay that you're not perfect. But each time that we messed up, it gave us a chance to do better the next time. We grow through those opportunities. We grow through those mistakes. And she's the one who probably, in some way, shape, or form, helped us to get a little closer to God. Don't forget to honor her today. In a few weeks, we're going to honor our dads, and we're going to celebrate all the examples he is and how he leads us to God as well. But today, it's about Mom. Let's truly do that today and honor whoever it is that played that role for you. Moms are special. Let's not forget that. But don't stop at Mom. Remember to thank the one who gave us Mom.